Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, CB Baker. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Daniels, for joining us once again and giving us some insight into the topic of why aren't men coming to church? Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to talk about and have a discussion today. So, right off the bat, Pastor, why aren't many men coming to church?
Well, I think it's a couple of dynamics involved. If you look at the minority churches in general, especially if you look at African American churches, I think the question would be is who drives how we feel about religion in the first place? Who drives whether or not a person should be in church or should not be in church, and who drives how you look at where you should get your support system from. Mm. And I know that a lot of women may not appreciate this, but if we conclude that the majority of households in the minority communities are headed by females, then the question that we have to look at is, well, why is it that they are not driving their sons to church? Why aren't they pushing their sons to come to church at an early age? Why aren't they managing their households in a manner where the young boys in the household are compelled to feel like church is a part of their lives? And I think that, what you find oftentimes is that's not the case. And while there are a lot of mothers that do feel that way, but I'm saying oftentimes that's not the case. And so there, I think, is where the problem stems from. It's not like you just become an adult and make a decision. Something catastrophic has to happen in your life for you to decide, when you're an adult, I'm going to start coming to church. Right. So most people in church were brought up in church. Mm-hmm. They may have gone away from the church, right, but then they came back. But most church folk were brought up in church.
Yeah. I've been part of a panel discussion on this before in years past. And one of the ladies I forget her name, but she made mention that men have a hard time following other men and other female pastors, which is a whole nother discussion. Right. But for just following someone else, period. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that. I said, well, the facts are the facts. I look out in the congregation, it's mostly female. So I can't discredit what she was saying.
I can't. That's the dumbest statement I ever heard. What was your coach, male or female?
Male.
Did you follow him?
Yes.
What was the quarterback, male or female?
Male.
Did they follow the person?
Yes.
Who's the defensive leader on the team, male or female?
Male.
Did they follow him?
Yes.
Who's the gang leader, male or female?
Most likely male.
Well, do the Bloods follow him?
Yeah.
See, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
When you go out to, let's say, a pool hall, who's leading the people to come?
Right.
A male.
Right.
Women, I love you, but stop trying to act like you understand how men think, because that's not true. Men have no problem following men. If that was the case, the military would be decimated. Right. There would be no military. In the military, men follow men. They've always followed men. They will follow a man to their death. Right. And the same thing they do with gangs. That's how it's always been. When people say things like that to me, what she's doing really is she's trying to rewrite her own way of bringing up her own children, I would guess. Because the bottom line is this. If men had a problem following women or men, why then, when a man has a single mother for a parent, why is the first thing he say when he, gets an accolade is, thanks, Mom? Right. See, it's not that people have a problem following. It's how you teach them. Mm-hmm. It's what do you teach them? For example, when you go to church, look at the number of women you see. How many children do you see? Mm-hmm. Think about it now. Right. If you got a church where, let's say, on average, let's say you have a church where you have 500 women in the church. Right. How many children do you think you ought to see in the church?
You should probably see at least 250 children.
I would say you should see at least 1,000. You know why? Because the average family has two children.
Right. I was being very conservative.
Right. You're being extremely conservative. Right. Because if you have 500 women of childbearing age,
right,
you would expect to see as a minimum at least the number of children you see as females.
right. And I know from Enoch, it ain't 200 children in the church.
Right. That's not what you see. So what does that suggest? That means that whoever the head of the household is saying to their children, it's an option.
So now this is deviating a little bit, but it's a good question, is why have we said that going to church is an option?
Yeah, that's the $100,000 question right there.
Right.
See, because in my household, when I lived with my father, for example, my father's option was simple, and that is go to church or go to work. That was Sunday. Mm-hmm. You could not stay home from church unless you were going to work. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was his rule. That was his routine. My mother was a nurse. So my mother worked on most Sundays. Rarely was my mother off on a weekend. So by her working on Sundays, we didn't have to go to church. Now, when she went to church, we did go to church. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying that's not the way it traditionally was because of her work schedule. So my being brought up in church, was because of that kind of routine. But even when I moved back into my mother's home as a teenager, because I lived with my father for a while, it wasn't so much a requirement I go back to church, but it was an encouragement for me to go back to church. She was encouraged, your life is in ruins, go to church, seek God, see what happens.
Right.
That kind of thing. I think a part of it is that it's just the way generationally that we've got to a place where parents are saying, I don't want to treat my children the way I was treated. Mm-hmm. Like, if the parent, let's say, grew up in a strict household. Right. I don't want to treat my children like that. So therefore they're not strict with their children. That's the same dynamic. I think, I remember, for example, and I think we talked about this once before, that one of the members of the church was talking to Chad. Chad was about maybe 8, 9 years old, and he said, "Yeah, your dad is strict, isn't he?" And Chad looked at him and said, "No, not really." And he said, "You don't think so? I don't know how you can put up with him." Right. And he said, "Well, that's all I know." Right. I wasn't strict. It wasn't that I was so strict, but I did have rules. See, but this gentleman had children now. He was a military guy, and he had 3 daughters. But see, in his mind, his thing was, because maybe he had been under, a certain set of rules, that he was going to relax the rules for his children. And it was obvious. And it's obvious in church. You can tell it in church sometimes. When you see some of the little kids that have the option of running around the church. Right. Have the option of doing things. We had no option when I grew up. Right. There was no option that you could run around. Right. No, you stood up, you got knocked back down. Right. And then if you cried, they would say, "I'm going to give you something to cry about."
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right.
See, it was a whole different dynamic. So what I see is this, I don't see parents treating church the way they treat school. Mm-hmm. That's what I don't see. Right. You require your children to go to school, but you don't require them to go to church. A parent will break their neck to put their son in Pop Warner football. Mm-hmm.
Spend a whole lot of money too.
Spend money, spend time, everything. Yeah. They won't break their neck to make sure their son is active in church.
Is that because they got to take this? That's another event, quote unquote, that they got to take the child to because they don't feel like going.
Well, every football game is an event, right? Church is an event, right?
Now, I'm following.
It takes less effort to take your child to a church event because if you're active in church, you don't have practice every week.
That's true,
right? And then you don't have game day every week. But if you're active in Pop Warner football, you got practice almost every day. Right. And you have to go to the games. So it's more energy and it's more money. It's where do we face our priorities? Then the child grows up. The child doesn't stay a child. Mm-hmm. So that young boy grows up. He becomes a teenager. Well, if he didn't have to go to church when he was, 6 and 7, Certainly, he doesn't have to go to church when he's 15 and 16.
All right, now, devil's advocate now. I'm going to switch roles here. Now, Pastor, I work Monday through Friday, and then I'm taking my child to these after school events, mm-hmm. and then I got the, cheerleading or football or basketball mm-hmm. on Saturday. And now, okay, now you ask me to come to church. It's like, when do I have time for myself, Pastor?
So let me help you understand what you just said. Let me be the devil. Because you said, let me be the devil's advocate.
Right.
That's true. So that's like saying, let me stand up for the devil, right? Let me promote the fact that there's something more important than worshiping the God that created me. There's something more important than worshiping the God that has given me the necessary tools, the necessary funds that I need to pay my bills, to eat right, to put clothes on my children's back. But you're right. That's how parents think. You know why? Because they have allowed the devil to get into their head to believe that letting that child twirl around and learn ballet is more important than that child learning the morals that you learn in church. Now, here's what happens, and this is what I'm sick and tired of. You will let the child do what the child wants to do. Then when the child gets in trouble, Pastor, will you go out there and write a letter? Or will you come and testify to the moral character of my son? What moral character? He was a hellraiser. You didn't make him come to church. But now when he's in trouble, you want me to say, oh, he was such a wonderful child. He did this, he did that. No.
Right.
If you want your child to grow up with morals, grow up with values, to have a system in his heart that says do right, even when wrong is beckoning you and calling your name, then a parent must make a decision and say, where are my priorities? Is my priority giving that child, let's take the sports for an example. You know this, you're a sportsman, you had scholarships, all this kind of things. What is the likelihood of a child making it to the professional ranks?
Less than 1%.
How about that?
Less than 1%.
Now, what is the percentage of your child getting to heaven? What are what we call the possibilities of your child getting to heaven? 100%. Every child has that option, but every child doesn't have the option to go pro.
Right.
So let's just say I'm a gambling man. What odds should I take?
Well, you should take the odds of Jesus.
Because that's 100%, right?
Right.
If I get saved, boom, I'm 100%. But see, that's how our minds work. Let's even back up a little bit. What are the odds my child will get a scholarship, a full ride like you got? What are my odds that my child will get a scholarship to go to college?
Now, because I've been involved in this conversation before, it's 13%.
Okay. So that's what? 13% is roughly 1 out of every what? 100? Oh, excuse me. 10 out of every 100 will get a scholarship. Roughly. I'm talking about a full ride.
Right.
Now, I can tell you, when I was in school,
No, that's not a full ride. That's just a scholarship.
But that ain't what I said.
Right.
What did I say?
Full ride.
Full ride. Well, I was going to say, when I was in school, I can tell you 10% of the athletes didn't get full rides.
Right.
When my son graduated from high school, and you sit in the stands and they're calling out who's getting full scholarships, it wasn't 10%.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It wasn't 10%. It may have been 2% that they said were getting full scholarships. I can tell you at Enoch, when I look at the high school athletes that we have, it's about 1% of those athletes, parents come up to me and say, my child got a full scholarship for athletics. There are more that get a full ride for academics than for athletics. So if there are more that get a full ride for academics than athletics, where should my priority be?
Yeah.
It should be on getting A's.
Right.
Which is easier, for my child to be a star running back or for my child to be a 4.0 student?
A 4.0 student.
Ain't it something?
Yeah.
Because that's something I can control.
Yeah.
See, I can control your study. Right. I can control, all those kind of things. But talent is God given.
Yeah.
I cannot force you to run 100 meters in 10 flat.
Right, no.
I don't care how much I train you, I can't get you there unless God gave you the talent. But the other stuff I have control over. See, our minds are warped. I'm just telling you, our minds are warped. So when you take that and you look at where we put our priorities, if I've told my son that that's not a priority, I've taught him that. That's not a priority.
So now, is part of that reason of the priority of going to church because the man is not involved in the family structure as much as it should be?
No. It has nothing to do with who's involved. It has to do with who's in charge.
Okay.
Is the son in charge or is the mom in charge? Because look at how many single households where the sons go on to be athletes.
Right.
There's no man prompting them to go play football.
No.
There's no man prompting them to go play basketball.
But the mom is prompting
them. The mom is prompting them to do it. She's putting them in all this stuff, right? So why isn't she doing the same thing about church? Why is she making him feel like that's important? That it's important for you to sing on the choir. Let me tell you something. You have just as much chance of getting a contract singing as you do getting a contract with the NFL.
That's you right about that. And to be honest with you, got a better chance of getting a contract singing than you do getting a contract with NFL.
Right. So and in our culture, don't most of our professional singers come out of church?
Yes.
So the likelihood of you getting a contract is better if you go to church than if you don't go to church.
Yes.
But see, we don't force that. That's why I'm saying it really boils down to who's in charge in the home. If in the home it is a priority for you to go to church, then you know what? You go to church. I mean, it's just what you do. You go to church.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying you won't walk away from the church, but when things become difficult, you will go back. Because you will go back to that which, gave you what you needed at that time. So all I'm saying is that, those young boys who mothers don't prioritize that for them, they grow up to be men. And when they grow up to be men, now the wife wants to say, why don't you come to church? Why don't you come to church? Well, it's too late to train a man.
Right.
He's already grown. So he's already, unless something happens in his life that causes him to see the light, he's not going to come. He sees no reason to come. What reason would he have to come now if there's been nothing that told him the church was important?
Right.
I
think of one big one for a single man to go to church. Because that's where all the women at.
I know, but my point is this: the same women that go to church go to clubs.
A very good point.
So great, you're right. There are a lot of women in church,
right?
But it's not like they go home and stay home. Right? The same women that go to church go to clubs. The same women that go to church go to football games, go to basketball games. They work out. So I agree with you though that should be a calling card,
right? To
say come to church. But I'm just saying you can find a woman that pretty much let's face it, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. Right? Yeah. So you can find a good woman anywhere, right? And then that's the other thing we have to look at too is the ratio of men to women. I mean, we realize that it's a 3-to-1 ratio anyway of men to women. Because of incarcerations. Because of, death, just because of birth rates.
Right.
So if there's a 3-to-1 ratio, if all things are equal, there would be...
There would still be more women than men in the church.
Right. It would still be, for every 100 people, you would have approximately 66, 67 women and 32, 33 men, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right.
So even if that, that's what it would be then. You take that ratio and then you add to that, that people aren't forcing their sons to really be brought up in the church. Now, so the question, let's flip the script then. What is it that brings women to church? Because see, both men and women aren't necessarily always brought up that that's a priority.
Right.
So then what brings women to church? That's the key question.
I think if he was asking me, and I'm going to give you the answer, leadership. the seeking of leadership. Like I believe if you're seeking, if you're seeking leadership.
Why are they seeking leadership? Because every black woman I know thinks she's in charge.
I officially have no. But I think you're right. You know, I haven't run across one yet that didn't think he was in charge. Right. You know, but it's a good point. But at the same token, though, if a female was here, a black female was here, they would say, "Well, we want to be led." That's what they say.
But we both know better.
That's what they say. They want to be led. They want someone to take charge. And I know from the time that I'm in church, mm-hmm. when you hit the pulpit, you're completely in charge. You're controlling everything. Boom. You don't look like you're like, okay, what's next? Like, even if you forget a part and, mm-hmm. Somebody came your notes say, oh, you forgot to invite the visitors. He's mm-hmm. like, okay, well, thank you so much. But then even in that, you're still in charge. You feel everything is in charge. Leadership.
I agree. Let me throw this at you just as put a wrench in it.
Okay.
I don't want to be the advocate for the devil.
Okay. Put a wrench in it.
Put a wrench in it. Okay. Who do you think, men or women, face difficulties in their life first without support?
I would say women.
Bingo. See, that's why women come to church. Because men have a support system that women don't necessarily have when things happen in their life. For example, look at the pregnancy rate of unwed mothers, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if a woman gets pregnant, does the man need support?
No.
But the woman does.
Mm-hmm.
So boom, that's one reason why she come, right? If there's a divorce, right? Who normally gets the kids? The woman, right?
Right.
Man ain't paying child support.
Right.
He done disappeared, right?
Right.
Who needs support the most? The woman.
Right.
See, that is really, I think, the question that we have to look at is, where do men go for support? Where do women go for support? So when a woman gets in trouble, it's usually she still has the children to deal with. Mm-hmm. So she can't say, well, I'm turning to the bottle. Now, some do now. Right. Some do. But most of them who are responsible says, well, I can't turn to the bottle.
Right.
Because I got these children to deal with. I got to turn back to God. Well, the guy can say, I'm going to the club.
Right.
I'm going to hang out. I'm going to get my drink on. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to turn out. And I'm going to do X, Y. But see, she can't necessarily do that. So there's a difference in how you reach out for support. I think that's the key thing. It's why you find that when you look at just the ratios and then you look at, well, what draws you back, I think that's a key point too. Because, let's face it, the other thing is this, even women have taught their sons to be macho, mm-hmm. but they haven't taught their daughters to be macho.
Right.
So if a man gets in trouble, he's not going to think I need to go somewhere and get support.
Right.
Because his first thought is I need to tough it out.
Tough it out. And then what ends up happening, you tough it out, then you start acting out.
Absolutely. And that's when I come had to visit you in jail, right? That's
right.
when your mama like, can you go? And I'm like, oh no.
Right.
You helped them go to jail.
Right.
Now they want me to try to reverse what you helped them get into. Don't misunderstand me. I will go and I will do all I can do, mm-hmm. but I still want people to understand the dynamics of it, So I'm just saying from that regard, the woman, generally speaking, doesn't feel like I have to tough it out. Mm-hmm. Her thing is what? I don't have to tough it out.
Right.
I can call on, I can ask for help. And so they will come and they will ask for help more readily.
And women also don't have that cloud that pretending, they don't have to pretend like everything is okay. Where a man can lose his family or go through a divorce and they go start acting out, going to clubs and doing stuff, mm-hmm. move in from the suburbs, move into the city, and it's all to make it look like everything. I'm straight, dog.
Right.
I'm all right. I'm out here doing me. I'm out, blah. You know how we always talk.
Right.
But deep down, you're hurting, but you can't let someone else know
right.
that you feel that way. So, but what you're saying is what the man should be doing is doing the same thing the woman is doing as well.
Absolutely.
It's going right back to the church. And to be honest with you, going with the woman, so therefore they never even split up to begin with.
Right. And some do. Let's say some do. I can tell you there was a time in my pastorate where I counseled more men than I did women about relationships, because the men were trying hard, to say, hey, my marriage is this or, whatever, and I want it to work, this kind of thing. But you're right. I'm just saying that's the thing is that we have that sense of I have to be strong, but who teaches us that? I mean, again, I'm not trying to make women feel bad. I'm just trying to make people see the point. If the majority of households are headed by women, who taught the man he has to be strong?
Right.
Bottom line is you learn from your parents.
Right.
So if that's what you've been taught, then that's what you do. Suck it up. What you over there crying like a little girl for?
Right.
That you got to suck it up. So you're taught to suck it up. Right. Now, when the child is 2 and 3, the mama might pet him up.
Right.
But as he get older, mama start petting you up.
Right.
You come in the house, you got to go back out there and fight.
Right.
When we come in here like no little girl, go back out there and fight. If you don't fight, I'm going to fight you. That's the kind of advice you get, that kind of thing. So I'm saying with that, when you...
I literally, my mama told me go back out there and fight.
Right.
And next thing I know, it's fighting the whole neighborhood.
So now how can you now come and admit that, well, I'm not, I cannot deal with something. When that's what you've been taught.
Right.
And most people don't come back to church because they have a desire to worship. Most people come back to church because they feel like I need help in some area, emotional support. I feel empty inside, or financially I'm breaking down, or, whatever. It's that kind of thing. People don't come back to worship until they have gotten all those other needs met. Then they come strictly for the pure worship part.
Right. And what you have been preaching since the beginning I've known is you should be coming to worship, period. And then all the rest of the stuff will take care of itself.
Absolutely. If you come with that attitude first, the other stuff, it happens. God deals with that. And so I really think that's the dynamic. Do I have the answer to that? No, because I can tell you, even talking with my sisters, talking with my own mother, talking with other women, many of them don't see that they're raising, even talking with my own wife, they don't see their imprint on men. They just don't seem to see that imprint affects somebody else. So when you imprint a man, when you imprint your son, let's say, then that imprint impacts his wife, so from so on, because that stays with him. So, I look at my stepmother, for example, love her dearly. My stepmother told my stepsisters, your job is to wash dishes. Your job is to cook. And then breakfast, she would tell one of my stepsisters, fix your brother's plates. So she had to fix my plate and my stepbrother's plate. Now, that's what she told us to do. What did that put in our head, though? What that put in our head is that women are subservient. Women are subservient. That's what that put in our head. So what kind of woman does that mean I'm going to look for? Now, unfortunately for my wife, my mother was total opposite.
Right.
Total opposite. My mother was like, oh, hold on, here's the deal.
Right.
When I come home, you better clean up your stuff.
Right.
Her thing was, listen, you better know how to take care of your house. So it's a different dynamic. But I'm saying, so as a consequence, if you spoil your son, your son expects his wife to spoil him. And if she doesn't, he's always comparing her to the mother.
Right.
That's what's going on. And so he doesn't grow up to be a man. If you want your son to be a man, you have to grow him up to be a man So he will treat women and vice versa. You know, women teach their daughters how to be women. Oh, they do that all day long. They teach that.
So what's your comment on this statement? A woman can't teach a man how to be a man.
She can't teach a man how to be a man, but she can stop spoiling them and teaching them how to be a boy.
Yeah.
You know?
I often believe that sometimes you end up, if you don't want a certain thing to happen so bad that you end up causing it to happen. Now, if you don't, like the daddy was weak. My baby daddy was a weak person, didn't have no job, blah, 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 blah. I'll make sure my son grows up to be different and don't have those attributes. And then all of a sudden he mirrors the same thing that happens. I don't know what I did wrong, but if you was coddling him, not forcing him to own up to certain things, take care of responsibilities, and you say, you know what, no, it's okay, or don't talk to my son that way. Right. And I've seen that with coaches. It's almost impossible now to coach a child because you can't say anything to them. Right. Like when I was coming up, my high school coach was cussing me out. And I want people to understand this. Cussing me out in high school. That's right. If you was to have it happen now, he would be fired. Like, it would be on the news. It's like my coach was cussing me out. And I tell my wife.
Or would kick you too.
Right. I tell my wife, I was like, I got cussed out so much that you stop hearing the cuss words and you start hearing the message. The cuss words ain't nothing but an extra oomph on it. That's all it is. So I'd be like, okay, I got it. You want me to do this on this play? And so I listened to the coaches, did what I was supposed to do. And then when the cussing out didn't work, then you had to go run, go do something else, which at that point you wish you get cussed out because I don't want to be running sprints. Right. It's like everybody now is gotten so PC, politically correct, or just soft in a delivery of raising our children that I don't think they're really prepared for the reality of life.
Oh no, you're right. They definitely are not, and everything you say is just spot on. I can tell you, and let me say this just in case my wife listens to the podcast. Right? I love my wife, I love my son, I love my daughter. Them the three people that I would lay down my life for. Now, the very thing, I'm just echoing what you said and giving you an example. The very thing that my wife did not like about her upbringing, she did with my children. She did not like that her mother made her do more of the housework than her brothers. However, that's exactly what she did. She made my daughter do more of the housework, and then my son did literally nothing. Right. Because he, in her mind, he didn't have to do that kind of stuff, but my daughter did. Okay. Now, like you say, the very same thing that you don't like, right? You end up repeating that very same thing, and so you create the same thing that you did not like yourself. I remember when Chad was playing Pop Warner football, and a little drizzle came down, and the coach was, yelling at him a little bit. Debbie walks out there on the field, grabs Chad, takes him off the field, and the coach said, "Ma'am, you can't do this." And she said, "Yes, I can. This is my son." Put him in the car and took off.
Wow.
Okay. I'm just, right. She didn't like the way the coach was treating, him as but it's not like he was treating him any different than any other player. Right. But, and again, she's a loving mother. There's no doubt about it. She's a loving mother, always has been, always will be. But I'm echoing your point, right. Is that if that's the coddling that we give to men, why do we expect when they grow up them to be different?
Right. That's right. Yeah. So, in conclusion, Pastor, what is the one thing that we could do to help drive more men, or the men on the sidelines, or on the fringes, to start coming to church more?
I would say the best tool for getting men to come to church is women that lift men up rather than put men down. Because if you can get a man to take you to the movies and take you to the mall, you can get a man to take you to church.
Well, you heard it here, people. Thank y'all so much for listening and watching. This is your CB Baker. Till next time.